computer. Oh, that was loud. Okay. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Greek Audio Geek. I am Michael. I'm a Greek and obviously audio geek, although I'm not wearing one of my audio geek shirts that the wife got me. So don't tell Mrs. Greek. But guys, for those of you who've been following me, actually now almost a couple of years, you know that I'm a little more unique in that I've got a mixed use listening room that is also part of the main house. So I need wife approval for the stuff that we do. But I've been in the search for a stand that I truly love and that I'm truly excited about and that I think looks great and doesn't look DIY or doesn't look like everything else. And I've been doing a lot of posts for the last 2 years, so you guys know. But at the Southwest Audio Fest, over to that side, is Andy from Deep Lake Audio. And I walked into his room and I didn't even know who he was. And I was looking at the stand. I was like, oh my God, I love those stands. And I started talking to Andy and he was like, well, yeah, those are mine. So Andy, welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. And I love that you love the stuff.
I do. In fact, guys, I've just posted yesterday or today some pictures of the new amp stands. In fact, through the magic of post editing, I'll put some up on the screen here now somewhere while we're talking. Yep. And I'm really excited about it because, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but Andy, you've seemed to somehow take what could be construed as a very boring product, an amp stand, and you made it look great. And the Airy Surratt monoblocks that I have them on, I think are a piece of a work of art. They're beautiful.
Really. And
your stand just complements and works great with them. So tell us a little bit about how you got into all this.
You know, it started probably more than 15 years ago as an audiophile and as an upgrading my system. And I had bought a couple of cheap racks, during my early days, and I started having a little bit of money, and I bought what I considered at the time was kind of a nicer rack. There was one of those racks that had spikes, and each shelf was a set of spikes that sat in little holes on the next shelf and the next shelf. But I'm always going back there, and I'm changing cables and changing components, and I literally knocked one of the shelves off. It was kind of very light, and even though I thought it was kind of a higher end rack, I'm like, this thing is not great. And I was also getting a little feedback from, my wife around the fact that I don't have a dedicated listening room and this thing is sitting out there and the number of components are growing. And so I was taking that feedback, and at some point I switched to more of like a cabinet with doors on it. And so now all this beautiful equipment I bought is behind doors. And I was like, well, this isn't any good. I love the industrial design. I love these components, as any audiophile does, obsess over them. And I was like, this doesn't work. And so I really started looking out. I wanted an open-aired rack. I wanted hardwood. I wanted it to be beautiful. And I was a woodworker. And so I just didn't see what I wanted out on the market. And I just decided to build myself one. And then I built myself another one. And then my brother wanted one. And then a friend wanted one. And it kind of just grew that way. And finally, a couple of years ago, I just said, I think I want to take a stab at this. I think, in any time you start a business, you kind of generally come from it. You should come to it from a problem that says, hey, I have a problem. Maybe someone else has that problem. Maybe someone would be interested in this. So I built a few, photographed them, put them up online, and just hoping that other people might like them. And I went 60 days, nothing, nothing. But then people started emailing me and telling me how much they liked them, and then I haven't been able to even come up for air since 60 days into the business. I've been so busy. And it's been really great. And I've evolved the designs as time has gone by, you know, listening to people and really honing the type of wood I choose, honing little tiny things that people wouldn't notice, like the radiuses I use on certain parts of the wood and the finishing techniques I use, and really staying focused. And I think that's a big part of it, is just focusing on the type of things I love and care about, which, you know, these audio racks and audio platforms, really making sure that I don't get carried away, you know, keeping it simple, keeping the design aesthetic that I sort of went into it with, which some people have called mid-century modern, some people said Scandinavian. I'm not sure what the right answer there is. I know I like it. And keeping it simple, and putting a lot of work into the quality. And that's carried me through 2 years very well. Not that it's easy. Starting and owning a business is difficult. You can launch a website and say, this product is high quality, or this product is beautiful, or, you know, this is handcrafted.
But it doesn't make it true.
You want to use doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
So I'm still struggling with how I convey what I'm building and why it's special. And the greatest joy is sending something out to somebody like yourself, or to my, you know, all my customers, and having them proactively get back to me and say, wow, this is really nice. Like,
well, and I want
to web, but this is nice. I'm like, well, yeah, of course it's nice, but.
And I think that's an important part, Andy, because here's an interesting thing. So I am not a wood builder. However, after having gone to shows and looked at a bazillion wood racks, I start to realize what I'm seeing, and I can spot the difference in quality, okay, and attention to detail. Just as with speakers, years ago, to me, people were like, oh, that's an incredibly well-finished speaker, or it's not very well finished. I'd be like, what are you seeing that I'm not? But after seeing hundreds of speakers, I can now spot a mile away the difference between a well-crafted speaker and a not well-crafted speaker. And I think for me, that was one of the things that really called me to your speaker, was that your amp stand, was that you said it's simple. Yeah, I mean, technically it's simple. It's a couple of pieces of wood, but it doesn't look simple. And it doesn't look like just a square that was plugged in with a bunch of bolts that I could have made, and I'm not talented at all, in my garage. And I'll go one step further. When I was talking to you and I said, well, look, I got the Aries Seurat coming, and I need this and I need that, you were proactive. You brought up the I'm not going to say it wrong. Is it the African Puduk? Puduk. Okay, because it's P-A-U-D-A. Yeah. And you got into it. You were like, we can do this. We got this type of wood. And so you were somebody who came with options and solutions, rather than, yeah, what are your dimensions? I'll just build it.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. As I kind of evolved this business, it was very clear to me in the very beginning that what I enjoyed was solving a problem for someone. And it could easily be that I could have gone into this and said, well, what I enjoy is making as much money as possible. And
which is fair, which is totally fair.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I enjoy solving problems for people. And so even if someone just clicks on my website and buys a rack, I'll send them a mail to really confirm they're getting the right thing and the thing they want, and what components do they have, and are the clearances right, because I will make them right for them. And I love solving a problem. I've got 3 racks that I'm building right now that the person had constraints on how wide they could be, constraints on how high they could be, gave me the list of all the components, and actually put a CAD drawing together for that customer, which I do fairly often, to just make sure we had all the clearances. And if someone comes to me with a Class A amp and says, I just need 8 inches of space, I'm like, actually, no, you need a little more.
Yeah.
You need a little more air going through that, above that amp. And
as a tube nut, I can confirm.
I'm not going to build a rack for you that's like that. And you know, I've had people that said, I need it on casters. I need to roll it around. Great, let's talk about that. And here are some caster options. So I just love solving those problems because I'm an audiophile and I care what they have and I want them to be happy. And it can go all the way down to not just dimensions, but wood choices. And what do they want in wood? And what does their equipment look like? And even what does the rest of the furniture in that room look like? And help with that. And I think you originally were like, hey, this African Padauk, I love it. Let's do African Padauk legs. And I was like, no, I think black legs.
And you were right. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing.
Match the amp. And you sent me that picture and I was like, ooh, that looks really good. And that's the joy for me. That I just love when I can have a piece of furniture in someone's room and it just looks great. And also, solves a problem that it's a high mass, super heavy, piece of equipment that'll help the system.
Yeah, and a couple of points on what you said. Yes, you are right about being flexible, because I even said to you, look, can you just give me some threaded inserts? I got some different feet I want to put on in the stack audio, and you're like, no problem. We put in the M8s, it screws in, so people have the flexibility that it's not, this is the only way it comes, that's it. The other thing I would say is, I've got, that's a 1950s tester. I think that's similar, or 1960s. Right there's a pair of 1943 Kenrad tubes. I love Art Deco. I love old stuff. And I'm going to say it again, that maybe that's why I'm so attracted to beautiful tube amps. I've been looking for stands for 2 years, and I was really excited when I came across yours. Guys, I'm not making money on this. I don't charge for this. This is my personal opinion. I only say it if I truly believe it. And for me, even though, again, we go back to, well, it's just a rack, it's amazing how much it can speak to you. In fact, I'll point out one thing I saw that I thought was beautiful on your website. I'm thinking when we upgrade the Greek crib and I have my own dedicated room, I'm thinking, well, what's my next step in terms of racks, and how, because I have so much equipment coming in and out. It's in fact, my amp stands, even though I've got footers, they're on sliders because, I got to get the cables and this and that. But you've got a picture of, and this is what I mean about thinking outside the box, because I've seen this similar design before, but I never thought it looked this good, where you had 2 low amp stands and then you had 2 lower double shelves in the middle.
Yeah. Yep.
And because for me, I don't want, in my ideal setup, a big rack in the middle. It's going to affect imaging and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it looked so good, again, for something that people could argue has been done before, but it hasn't hit my attention the way yours did.
I appreciate that. I know that one, and that was another great example of someone that said, this thing isn't going to go over 22 inches high, or some number that was like, holy cow, that's pretty low. How are we going to do that? And well, let's put the amps out on our own stands, and then let's make this change and that change. And that was really fun. And that's, like I said, that's the joy of doing this. If you're going to put so much money and attention into your system and the cables and the equipment, I do think, audio racks are not thought as a first order decision point, but it's something that people should get to. And, I always look at it, I go, someone asked me the other day, who are your competitors, Andy? Who are your competitors? I'm like, boy, I don't really think about having competitors. It's more, how do I get people to care about a beautiful wood rack and care about what their system looks like? My competition are the people that don't care, or maybe just steal racks or stuff from IKEA, I guess you could say that. But if there's, there are other companies that make wood racks, I'm like, great. Like, as long as people care, that's all that matters.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, because I do see it. I see people who will spend $75,000, $80,000 on a system, and then they've got a $499 rack. Yeah, and there needs to be certainly when I started this channel several years ago, and then I went down that path of, do racks sound different? They can. How important is vibration isolation? Very. And you were willing to have that conversation with me. You knew what the different woods did. And I would say that you approach this, in my personal experience, more of a partner to make sure the person's going to be happy, rather than some other companies I've worked with over the years in various products and stuff like that, where they're just an order taker.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with order takers. I mean, it's a transactional world out there, and some people, I've had a lot of people that I love your stuff, but I need it next week, and I'm like, I don't build like that. Like, sorry, I'm glad you like it, but I'm not operating a factory here, and there's nothing wrong with operating a factory and cranking out product, but it's just not what gets me excited in the morning, and so I'm always willing to, feel like, there's great customers for me out there that care about their systems and care about building the right thing. And I hope I find them, and I hope we build something amazing together. And, another thing you said that stuck out to me is, you and I go to audio shows, and we probably look at online things all the time. And there's so many systems out there that, what I would say, kind of look like Amazon data centers, right? You just have this rack of equipment on these steel things, and you look at it and go, for me, it's all about listening to music. I love music. I am one of those people that will, a Saturday night sitting in front of my speakers. Usually if my wife is out of town, that's when this happens. But
it's the same thing that I do. The vodka starts flowing.
Yeah, for me, it's a Cabernet. And,
yeah.
And I like that as entertainment to me. And I want the experience visually needs to be pleasing. And so I care a lot about like what my speakers look like and what my amps look like, and obviously what the furniture looks like, and that it all kind of fits together and is cohesive. And it's it's that interesting challenge to have that goal. Like, it's got to look good, and then say, okay, but it's got to be heavy and it's got to be rock solid. And most of my racks are over 100 pounds. They're a pain to ship. They're expensive to ship, but they don't move. They are heavy, and they are high mass. And you take high mass in combination with decoupling, some kind of footer. I bundle mine with isoacoustics. The ones you use are really good too. But I like to keep that simple. Heavy, I mean, that's it. And then I think, what you said before is it's scary to buy stuff online. Like, it's scary. It's also a pain to go into a dealership, and those are all hard problems. So I do recognize that people can go to a website and go, do I trust this person? Would I buy from them? And on my website, there's a lot of things from like email address, email me, chat with me, and you see those on websites all the time that send you to an AI chatbot. And what people really responded with me is that I'm in the shop and I will respond within an hour, and you're going to get me, right? Someone's like, well, am I talking to the sales team? I'm like, no, you're talking to me. Are we going to build something? Let's do it.
Well, and I think that you said, so two things. First, one of the things I always talk about on my channel is that I can find great products. It's not difficult to find great products. For me, the challenge is finding a great product with a great company and a great person behind the company. And that's what I was really comfortable in talking with you about, because I kind of feel like if I'm going to talk about them on my channels and my platforms, I kind of feel like, even though I tell people, don't take my word for anything, go make up your own mind, go listen for yourself, I still feel as though it's a personal recommendation. And so I only want to be talking about the good products with the good people behind the company, right, versus the good product with the crappy people. And the other thing you said that really caught me, and I've never talked about this publicly, is that my dream is when I win the lottery, I'm getting a French chateau house built with a moat, and I want the moat filled with alligators, and I want a drawbridge. Okay. But for me, when I look at all these rooms and what do I want my room, the big new Greek crib to be like, I agree with you. And you're the only person who's brought this up, which I find really interesting, that I see the rooms that have got all these big metal shelves and there's 4 and 4 and 4 with the gear. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it leaves me feeling cold and turned off. I want that room where I've got the amber glow, where I'm on the comfortable chair, where the furniture to me is relaxing and inviting. And I posted this once that there was a room I saw that was acoustically not set up perfect, but it was a room where I could sit there for hours, invite my friends, we could all have a drink and just listen to music together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And I have a group of friends. We have something called Tunes Fest, which we do once a year. We're year 26 coming up. I think this will be our 26th year. And it's a group of guys, and we get together once a year in front of whoever's stereo has gotten the latest upgrade, because that's important, and we won't let someone host unless they can bring the goods. And we just listen to music. We always have to explain it to people. What are you doing there? You're playing poker? No, we're just listening to music. And the whole goal is we come with our playlist, and our goal is to play a song they've never heard before that sounds amazing. And the setups in my buddies' homes and my place, they're nice, they're comfortable. You want to hang out in them. And that's really important. And it's also important that they're acoustically set up correctly. I don't get putting a whole bunch of metal between the speakers, right in the sweet spot there. Like, I don't get that. I liked having my rack off to the side.
Yeah, mine's the same way. It's off to the side.
Right, and I like wood because wood has, it's another dampener in the room. But it's about listening to music. Like, that's where the love of for this whole thing for me comes from, is that. And it's really wild when someone like yourself or a customer finds me and says, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to build my dream system. I'm building my dream system. I'm looking for my dream rack. This is what I'm looking for." I don't have a dedicated listening room, but even if you have a dedicated listening room, I don't know why you would want to be in a room that feels cold and technical, like you say.
Yeah, I agree. And and again, there's no right or wrong answer to this. And, I just actually had a thought of a question. I'm going to ask you 2 questions I've never asked anybody before. It's sort of like, let's get to know Andy. Okay. And there's no right or wrong answer, but I'm going to judge you forever. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Okay. So, tubes or solid state? Which do you prefer?
I am a solid state guy, but that's not because I prefer solid state. It's actually just what I have, and the financial means to be swapping tubes in has been challenging to me. I want a recommendation from you on a tube preamp, because I feel like that's my gateway into this. I have Bowers and Wilkins speakers. I've had them for a long time. I'm a little harshness on the high end is,
yep.
I was initially attracted to it because I'm a drummer, and so I like transients and I like things to be very, very quick. Growing a little old to that sound, I think I want to start with a tube preamp and try a few out and see how that goes. I'm going to upgrade my speakers at some point and change to something else, but it's more just out of sort of the path I went on. I remember going to audio shows 10 years ago, and I walk into a room that's got a tube amp in it. It's doing 5 or 10 watts, single-ended to a high-efficiency speaker, and they're playing female vocals. And I go to the next room, and it's the same thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm a rock guy. I like drums. I like aggressive stuff. I get it. Sounds amazing. Not for me. You go now, this year, last couple of years, and you're walking into rooms with tube amps, and they're playing everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds unbelievable.
It's funny you say that, because so for me, it's the same thing. When the wife is out, that's when the listening facts. She was out most of Sunday. I started listening at 2:30. She came home at 10:15, and I was still listening. And my musical taste, everything from 1930s Louis Armstrong, and man, I want to hear that trumpet in his voice. This opera I like. But after a couple of hours, when the wife is out and the vodka's been flowing, the vocal trance comes back from my rave days. And so for me, I love, to your point, finding the tube gear that can handle that vocal trance
Yeah.
well, and that can do that wide variety of genres. Okay, so here's the next question. And there's, again, no right or wrong. Vinyl or streaming?
Both, if that's an acceptable answer, but streaming would be the quantity of music I listen to is mostly streaming.
Yeah.
And that's convenience and this incredible world we live in where I have every piece of music ever recorded at my fingertips. And it's an
I agree.
experience. It's incredible. And so I do both. Anyone of my age, grew up with vinyl, and my dad had a reel-to-reel machine.
Mm-hmm.
And
I grew up with a record player, not a turntable, a record player.
yes, me too. And so I love it, and I love having my stacks of albums and bringing them out. And but I guess I'm lazy. Maybe that's the answer. I'm just lazy.
Totally. And I say that to people. I'm like, guys, with my OCD, I've got, to your point, I've got a million songs at my fingertips. If I'm halfway done the song, I don't need to get up and move the needle, and there is, when you do digital right, I'm not going to sit here and say one's better than the other. But like, I just got the Pink Fawn streamer, and I do a lot of vibration isolation, and I play with a lot of network switches and cables. You can get it sounding really good.
You definitely can. I have a Lumen that sounds really good, and yeah, it's just convenience. I just heard that Madison McFerrin, who's a female vocalist, had a new single that just launched, and I'm just like, click, 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 boom, playing on my stereo.
Yeah,
I'm listening to it. And it sounds amazing. I also think, I think all audiophiles have this decision on where they spend their dollars. And I find that I want to put it into the speaker, and I want to put it into the amp, and on the sources, and there's a bunch of people that disagree with me completely on this, but on the sources, I want something very good. But if you're gonna give me $10,000 today, I'm going to go speaker hunting more than anything else. And so that's kind of the angle I always have. And I've heard all sorts of A/B tests, and I'm also always very willing to be wrong about anything, right? In fact, I did an A/B test, a dealer here, Seattle Hifi, 3 turntables side by side, same album, going through the same preamp, same amp, same speakers, and just moved the album from platter to platter, and I couldn't believe the difference. Like I'd never seen a vinyl demo like that before, and I was like, oh God, am I now going to spend $10,000 on a turntable?
But I think you're right. I mean, there's good vinyl setups, there's bad vinyl setups, there's good digital setups, there's bad digital setups, and it's interesting. I think what you were kind of talking about is what is the audio capital that you have to spend, and you're spending it in terms of on the gear versus the medium, which I agree with, because for me, it's. I just went out. I've got 14 NOS tubes that are being delivered this week that I'm spending money on. I would also go one step further and say, for me, where space is an issue, my wife is so amazing, and she puts up with so much of this and this channel, because like, we've got a 2-car garage, and we've only got 1 car because the other half of the garage, it's full of crates and boxes, and I need a shipping dock at my next house because I got so much stuff coming and going. So for me, she's kind of drawn the line at, if we need to start storing records, I think that's the divorce point. And so I'm totally like, no problem, we'll stick with streaming.
Yeah. You got to pick your battles.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I love talking shop with you, and this is great. Anything that you think is exciting or different that you'd love to share with the viewers? Well,
I think my brain bounces between furniture making and audiophile stuff back and forth. One question I had for you is kind of I'm kind of interested in the state of the audiophile industry and love your thoughts on it. As I'm selling into it and I'm discovering things, certainly there's a huge trend towards tubes. I'm not going to say it's a trend towards tubes. It's here. tubes are everything. The number of requests I have about what space should I put on the first shelf to have the heat dissipation for my Macintosh this or that, it's incredible. And I had one customer, I didn't end up selling to them, but they wanted a platform on rails that could slide out, so when they rebiased the amp, they could, and it was like
That's a great idea.
and I was like, "Whew, that's an amazing idea." And it was one of those ideas of like, "Oh, I need to go design that." And at the same time, shit, I really should have some tube gear because I want to feel it, I want to touch it, I want to make sure it's right. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on like what you think is missing in the tube world when it comes to my type of products or any type of products where you think the market's not being, you know.
Yeah, I've got very strong thoughts on the tube things. First of all, for me, I do this channel, I do this for fun. This is just some guy who loves sharing his opinion. And if I could accomplish one thing with this channel, it's two things. A, to help highlight the boutique and the small businesses who are the good guys in this industry. Okay, that's very important to me. And second, it's to bring more people into the love of tubes. And I'm getting those messages of, oh, I've got Class D, you've got me thinking about tubes. And I love those messages. But I think one of the mistakes that tube manufacturers are making is that they're too busy on modern day stuff. And you can see on some of the older companies, their progression of how their stuff sounded 10 years ago versus today, of trying to chase the solid state sound and forgetting what made tubes great.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, it would be two things. I think typically people with tube amps want them on display more than people who just buy a solid state amp.
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that for me, when I hear people who've got this visceral emotional attachment to touching the record, holding the record, I get it. Because that's how I am with my tubes. I mean, if I have 2 hours to kill, which is almost never, I'm going to sit down and clean my tubes and make sure my checklist is right. And so I get it. So I would say it's finding ways to really, even if they're within a rack, to make them front and center and stick out more than the other gear. And then the other thing I would say for tube manufacturers is, guys, don't forget what the point of tubes is, and don't try and make it clinical and neutral and don't try and make it solid state. It's not. That's why we love it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very interesting. One of the kind of design points on my racks is the front two legs are pulled back, and the shelves are cantilevered, and that was all about just showing off the equipment. I wasn't thinking about tubes or anything. It was like, this equipment's beautiful, solid state or tubes, and it should be shown off. You should, and also I'm always grabbing it and turning it and putting cables in the back and taking cables out and just having access to it. And with tubes and changing your tubes out, you need to not be fighting the rack to go do that.
And you're right. The space for cooling is, most people underestimate the amount of heat tubes gives off.
Yeah. For sure. Well, what is if someone came to you and said, from the top of the tube to the next shelf, what's the right distance?
Even if it's open on all sides, I would say at least 12 inches.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's because I've got some amps that run really hot. I've got everything from, in fact, I was just in there. I think I've got like 14 amps here right now. And I've got everything from 1.5 watt type 45 to the Airy Surratt, those big things, those things give off serious heat. Each monoblock has one 845 and one 814. Those are serious tubes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine it also being 200 pounds. I couldn't imagine putting that in a rack. Thus the amp stand. But yeah, I would say you can't, and that's why I eventually went with the amp. I think tube amps either need to go on the top shelf or on their own amp stand.
Yeah, 12 inches is a lot, and I think if someone came to me, I would.
It's going to look weird.
I put them on
Yeah.
outriggers, put them on platforms outside the core.
Because the wood, you would know this more than me. Even if it's, let's say, 8 inches, that wood, even if there's enough to dissipate, the heat rises. That wood's going to get really hot.
It'll get pretty warm. You know, I took a solid stay D'Agostino amp running in Class A, and I put it with 2 inches of clearance to test, and you know, ran it for a couple of days, and yeah, it got hot. It wasn't a concern at all from the wood cracking or catching on fire, but it was too hot for that clearance, and I was testing the inner limits that you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And I always tell people if it's solid state and Class A, you've got to have at least 4 inches, if not 6 inches. And tubes, I think they should just be out on their own platforms. But
I agree, because like even if 8 inches from the top of the tube is enough, when you start running these old tubes that are any type of, you want them to run as cool as possible.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So that would definitely be that would be my recommendation. But I think what's interesting is that you're talking about your stand and how you want it to complement the gear. When I look at your new amp stand and those Aries Seurat versus what I've had there before, I've had multiple things there before. Before, it kind of looked like here's the big amp, because I had other Aries Seurat before these. Here's the amp. That's it. I almost feel like with your amp stands and the racks that I've seen, it's okay, we're going to make our own statement. We're a really cool rack here by ourselves, but we're also focusing the visual aspects up to the component itself.
It's really well put. Yeah, you touched on something for me. I think it's when you're designing a piece of furniture or a product, you have to have a point of view. And for me, the point of view wasn't, let's build something that says, look at me, look at the rack. And there are a lot of techniques in woodworking you can do by routing, interesting designs in the front and doing multiple stacks of different colored woods. And there's a lot of things you can do to make the rack. Some people might say more attractive, maybe not. And what I have really enjoyed is what I don't do, which is, not trying to make something that says, look at me. I want the equipment to look great, and I want to be a supporting character, I guess would be a way to put it. But it's interesting you say that. Like, I want it to be beautiful, and I want it to be complementary, and that's the role. And if I can do that, have it be super heavy and really do great at reducing vibrations and noise, I'm happy. I'm a happy guy, and so I appreciate you saying that, because it is hard. It is hard to hold yourself back, because I will look at it and go, well, maybe I should be putting this or that into it, and maybe I should be doing something crazy and mixing different types of woods, and you've seen the things that are out there, and I'm like, I don't think that's what I would want. So I try and hold myself back and keep it really clean, but good looking.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for spending this time. I'm going to say it again. I love your racks. I see my system, as I get more space, growing with more of your stuff. So thank you so much for being on this. Guys, I'm going to link to his website down below. I'm going to continue to post pictures of his gear, his racks on my channels. And I'm also going to be doing a video on the amp stands themselves, so you guys can see more of what I'm talking about. Andy, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Great having me. Great being
It was a lot of
here.
fun.
Great talking to you. A lot of fun. I could talk audio stuff with you all day.
We need to get you out here to Texas.
I want to come back. I really enjoyed the Southwest Audio Show, and there's a great audiophile community down in Texas. I really,
it is, yeah.
Really
and great barbecue.
And great barbecue, for sure.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thanks.
Guys, I'm the Greek Audio Geek, and I approve of this message.
Opa!